Hello students, this is Assistance on the Third Crusade, and before we begin reading the text, we will review the questions that you're being asked to answer so that you will know what to listen for once we read the text. So the first thing we're going to notice is that the Third Crusade was from 1189 to 1192. So we can see that right there, and we know that from previous information in class. The first question asks, who was Saladin? And we're going to figure that out from the text. Question 2, what was the outcome of the Battle of Hattin? Question 3 asks you to consult with the person who read about the First Crusade. So you're going to need to talk to whoever read the First Crusade. And what we're looking for is what was different about how Christians behaved in their victory during the First Crusade and how Muslims and Saladin behaved after their victory in 1187. And of course, when we're talking about the victory, we're talking about who had control of Jerusalem. Question 4 is, which person from Europe led the Third Crusade? Explain why this was an epic fail. Question 5, Richard the Lionheart picked up the Third Crusade after the epic fail you identified in question 4. Was he successful in capturing Jerusalem for Christians? What were the terms of the treaty he made with Saladin? And if you are a person who's interested in history, you might recognize Richard the Lionheart as being the King of England at the time when the Robin Hood stories were around. Question 6, at the end of the Third Crusade, who was in charge of Jerusalem, Christians or Muslims? So for each of the 3 crusades, we are asking who is in charge. In order to read the text, we're going to first number the paragraphs. So we just have 3 paragraphs to read, and I'll be marking it as we read along. Despite uniting to fight off the Christians to win the Second Crusade, Muslims continued to battle amongst themselves. So right there we know that Muslims are the ones that won the Second Crusade, but it's telling you that they were still not completely unified. However, this would soon change. A new, respected, and experienced military leader named Saladin was growing his influence in the region. Soon, Saladin established an empire around the city of Jerusalem. On July 4th, 1187, the Battle of Hattin was fought between Saladin's Muslim army and Christians of Jerusalem. Saladin's victory gave him complete control of the holy city, and his behavior towards Christians was very different from how one might expect. Instead of killing the Christians in Jerusalem, he sold them for ransom or freed them all together. So we definitely wanted to know in one of our questions, how is the behavior of the Muslims different in victory from what the Christians did in the First Crusade? And in case you are not totally sure, when it says he sold them for ransom, he means he gave them back to their families in exchange for money, or he just set them free. Paragraph 2. This event spurred Europe into action. So the event that we're talking about would be the Battle of Hattin and the fact that Muslims now have control of Jerusalem. So it's saying it's causing the European Christians to do something. Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa responded to Saladin's siege on Jerusalem by gathering an army of 100,000 men, including 10,000 knights. However, Barbarossa drowned in the Salif River before reaching the city. He was swept away by a strong current while walking his horse through the river, and his suit of armor made it too heavy for him to swim. Leaderless and panicked, much of his army deserted and returned to their homes. So when we look at the word deserted, it means that they quit doing what they were supposed to be doing, which was head toward the Middle East in order to free Jerusalem from Muslim control. And it says they ran away and returned to their homes. So here is Frederick Barbarossa, and he didn't make it very far. By the way, Barbarossa means red beard. So he had a red beard. Luckily for Europe, a second army was led by England's King Richard I, also known as Richard the Lionheart. King Richard advanced through Asia Minor and reclaimed many cities. So we know from previous text that the Muslims had control of many cities in Asia Minor, and it's telling us that King Richard of England managed to win those back. In late 1192, King Richard reached Jerusalem, but his army could not reclaim the city. Instead, Richard was forced to sign a treaty with Saladin. So remember that a treaty is an agreement that two conflicting people or nations agree on. So here's what the treaty said. Christians were allowed to maintain many cities they captured in Asia Minor and near Jerusalem. Muslims were allowed to keep Jerusalem. However, they were required to allow peaceful Christians to visit the city on their pilgrimages. So we know that one of the initial problems was that pilgrims from Europe to Jerusalem, the holy city, were being attacked. So this treaty says they're not going to be attacked anymore. Even though Christians had been secured safe passage to the city, the Third Crusade is often seen as a failure for Christians because we know right here, we're going to use a different color here, Muslims were allowed to keep Jerusalem, so they were in control of Jerusalem. I hope this helps you on your education journey.